name is Darshana, and this is Ethically Yours, a podcast to simplify sustainability. In today's episode, we are talking about what goes behind building a social enterprise. And my guest today is Kirti Poonia, the head of Okhai. Okhai is a fashion and lifestyle brand that offers handcrafted products created by rural artisans from across the country. It has made a significant impact to the lives of the women artisans working with them by improving their economic as well as social status. Kirti leads Okhai since 2015 and has also made it to the list of the top 130 women transforming India, a list curated by Niti Aayog. Kirti, thank you so much for your time and for joining us today on this podcast.
I'm really happy to be on this podcast. Thank you.
You have been associated with Okhai for a very long time now, and there is a beautiful story behind how it came about, how it was born. Would you like to tell us a little about, how it was founded and, what is the story behind it?
For sure. So it's got a really, really sweet story. Actually, it's sweet and dark at the same time because in 1995, there was a drought in Gujrat for 4 years. And it was a running drought, which means year after year, it was a drought. Hence, there was no income from agriculture. I'm sure you've all had Tata Salt. It's made by a company called Tata Chemicals, which was present in this area. And wherever a Tata company is present, they ensure that they take responsibility of the community and the environment around it. And so they thought that, the drought has been really harsh on people. Let's commission a study and figure out what could be an alternate source of income in the area. And there was an elaborate study that was done, and that revealed that the women in the households had the ability to do very intricate embroidery, and this led to the idea of a social business. So initially, it was a lot of training on how to set up self-help groups. Self-help group is a government-recognized structure where 19 women can come together and they can earn money and put it into a bank account together, and then they all have passbooks and they can micro lend amongst each other. So the real intention was to set up these self-help groups so that women can earn together. The first product they made was actually achar. So Okhai's first product was actually pickle.
I had no idea. That is a brilliant thing. Are they still making achar, or you've completely converted them now?
No, completely converted. It was just one of those things that they first made.
Interesting.
Right? Because we were just trying to experiment with whatever the skills could be of the clusters, and they have several, right? So the agenda has never been that we will only do fashion. We will do what help our women generate a livelihood. Now, going back to the story, of course, the idea of the social business was there, but the women said that we can't come to centers because we have responsibilities at home, we have young kids. And so I think it was decided that let's set up a distributed manufacturing process. And that's a very, very beautiful process that Okhai still runs on. Auto rickshaws, they go through villages with small kits of each and every dress that you're making, with the threads, mirrors, tracing, every single thing that a woman requires to make that garment. And that gets distributed across self-help groups that we had set up and the women in those self-help groups. So the leader of an SHG, self-help group is called an SHG, is usually a smarter woman. She can understand design, colors, placements. So she does quality checking on a daily basis for that 1-2 weeks that they work on that product in their free time. So between meals, between taking care of their kids, they do all the embroidery work. And the next week, the auto rickshaws go back again and pick up the raw material, finished goods now. This has led to the ability for women to work from home and interestingly, now everyone, the whole world is working from home, and Okhai was not impacted during COVID because all the women were anyway working from home. Few years later, I think by the time it was 2008, now 1995 to 2008, the foundation was being built. It was something that was, I think, relatively going a bit relatively slower than what it has gone in the last 5 years. We set up a non-profit organization called the Okhai Center for Empowerment. And through that, we were training, making, and selling. But of course, it's not easy. It's not easy at all to be able to be a brand, and that too when you have very, very deep rooted connections with rural India. Often you are so involved in the problems of rural India that it's very, very difficult to focus on the market also. But we realized that we had to do this. Otherwise, we'll just be selling it to big brands and be exploited for bulk rates, or be selling through middlemen and then again be exploited. So how could we reach the market on our own? So in 2014, at the end of 2014, we set up a website, and this was the onset of e-commerce in India. Everybody was still just starting out. So I think that was the best time to ride this curve. I remember that telling people that, listen, we're not going to go and do any B2B selling right now. We're not going to do any store selling. Let's cancel all our exhibitions. Let's upload all our inventory online. And I can't even begin to tell you, we couldn't afford models to do shoots. So we used to shoot on a dummy. And it was so bad. But it used to cost what we could afford at that time. And I never was of the opinion that you should spend before you earn. You have to be a very profitable organization while you grow, so that your foundation of business is strong. And so we were like, okay, it's fine. People are going to buy it for the product and not for the photographs. So we made sure that we started loading everything, writing about Okhai, social media, of course. And when we started shooting, I remember going to Mithapur, and I remember taking over as the head of Okhai in 2015. And on my first trip, all I did was take photos, and all these artisans were like, is this our new head? Like, she's just taking pictures all the time. And I was trying to convince them that this is work, like what I'm doing is actually working. So for them, somebody wanting to take a picture of how they are working is like, why? So explaining to them that I'm going to try and show the world that you made this and you deserve the credit for it. And I remember Lakshmi Ben, she's one of the leading craftswomen of Okhai. She and I took a photograph together. I stood outside our workshop. I wore the garment she had made. She stood right next to me, and we took a picture that almost had me working, and she was also working on the garment, and I was working on my phone. And then we took few shots like that, standing together, and we wrote "Working Women for Working Women" as the caption on it. And I remember that photograph giving us our first 5,000 followers. I think that was our first campaign called "Working Women for Working Women." The idea was that we're rural working women. We're going to make beautiful clothes for you. And we're doing that to support your workwear, your daily fashion, and you're going to support rural working women by purchasing these products. So the relationship is really two ways. We're not really doing a favor to anyone, right? That really resonated with women. And I think that campaign, last year, we were published in Times of India, and that same picture that I took with Lakshmi Ben was in that article, and it said "Artisan, the new face of fashion." So 5 years later, that is where that image had reached. So that has really been our journey. We started with 350 women in 2015. Pre-COVID, we were at 2,300 women. Post-COVID, we are at almost 3,500 women. So a large part of our growth has really happened during COVID.
That firstly, hats off. That's been an incredible journey. And while you were narrating this, now I know for a fact that I've been following Okhai for a bit, but when you just mentioned about this campaign of working women for working women, I can see that picture in front of my eyes. And now I'm coming to realize that I've actually been following Okhai for that long. So you were definitely able to reach out to me as an audience, and I'm sure many similar to me. So yeah, I mean, it's fresh in my mind. And so I think after that point also, we saw a lot more brands talking about the people who are behind the scenes, as part of the supply chain, the artisans, the hands that made our clothes and all of that. So maybe in one way or the other, you definitely did take that first step in talking about, who is making our clothes and bringing them in that spotlight. Now, as a social enterprise, you have to look at a lot more than what a conventional fashion brand.
But no, I was just answering the first point where you talked about being the first ones. Without really sounding boastful about it, but definitely the first ones, because I'm an Insta, like I spend 5 hours on Instagram every day, and I had not seen images like that before, and I now see them all the time.
Yeah.
And it makes me so happy. It makes me so, so happy to see the makers on those images and to see the brands being open to sharing not so attractive parts of the business. But I am also seeing a lot of people who are taking artisans in their pictures, and those artisans have nothing to do with the brand. They are renting artisans and making them stand in the photograph. So I think that's a really, it's exploiting the whole industry, and it's so sad. And artisans are on Instagram now. All my artisans are on Instagram, and they are seeing it, and they feel so bad. It's unbelievable.
As a matter of fact, there's a very close friend of mine who used to work with the United Nations for the Women and Child Development, and she also mentioned about this fact that a lot of these photos are fabricated and not really true. And she then took me through this entire exercise of looking at a picture and analyzing it, and then you can actually identify which is a real picture and which is fabricated, which was very shocking to me, because we look at these pictures and don't really realize it because we constantly keep just scrolling through our feeds. But it just requires that little understanding of maybe the composition, the body language, the way it's shot, and I think you'll come to know. As a social enterprise, the way you look at business would be very different from what a conventional fashion brand would look at. So what are those aspects as part of Okhai that you tend to focus more on compared to a traditional business?
So definitely there are there is like a triple bottom line, where you not only looking at profitability of the organization, which is in our case literally the third metric. We definitely look at impact as the most important metric. So the number of artisans that we impact is not sufficient enough to be an impact metric. What we also look at is year on year, how much are their wages increasing by. So last year, for example, the artisans' wages increased by 12% on the coast of Gujrat, and on the other side, which is in Babrala, because we did that collection that was shot at the Taj, their wages increased by 100%. So this is an extremely important metric for me to measure on a weekly basis. Do they have work? Do they have enough work in the villages? So there is an email alert set for every Monday morning that all the Spocks are supposed to send to us if the artisans don't have work in the next coming weeks. So it can't just be that, we want to make a Kantha design, but there is no work for the applique artisans. It just can't be because the market says so. Sometimes we have to force fit work for an artisan group as well. The third thing that we'll very closely look at is, their own well-being in terms of, are they able to run their self-help group properly? Are they doing micro-lending within their group? Is there any issue over there? Are they facing any issues with the bank? So trainings on that. These are very close metrics to us. Whenever we start working with a new partner, we only work with people who are like, here's the breakup of the cost. Here's how much I paid for fabric. Here's how much the artisan got. This is the number of artisans. This is where we are making the product. We only work with people who are completely transparent with us. And we can then trust them that this is a sustainable organization, an ethical organization doing the right thing throughout the process. So I think that's another thing that we very, very closely look at. I don't know if this is a priority in a commercial business. I'm not really sure. But for any social business, these things are very, very important.
Right, right. Also, like you mentioned, that you do work with a lot of partners, and I do assume that this would be a very widespread network. It would be multi-layered and multi-stakeholder, considering there are self-help groups. There would be people as part of Okhai. There would be a board, and then there would be people who are actually coordinating communication, logistics, and everything within these women working from home as well. Can you quickly take us through this entire network and supply chain, and how is basically, how do you generate work, and how is it sort of processed? Also, I wanted to ask you, when you initially started, did you first start off as a manufacturing sort of an enterprise? Were you producing for other brands, and then eventually got into developing your own brand?
Absolutely. So that's how we started. We are still a manufacturing company. It's just that we sell on our own. And that's purely because of the advent of e-commerce that gave us the opportunity to be able to do that. Otherwise, we would still have been selling through other brands. So that's the second question. The first one is a bit complicated to understand. I'll try and make it really simple. And for simplicity, I'll start from the design. We have a fairly large design team now, which is based out of Ahmedabad. So we create products, prototypes for every artisan group across India in Ahmedabad. So if there is a chicken curry design that has to go to 100 chicken curry artisans in the suburbs of Lucknow, we will make that prototype in Ahmedabad. This, of course, is done on very, very deep research of the market and very, very deep consumer insights, so that we are definitely not going to go wrong. Because, hey, look, artisan needs to get paid upfront. So the entire risk is in the inventory of that product. So if you're going to make 100 pieces, it has to be deeply researched. So the prototype then goes to the artisan group, which is, say, for example, it goes to Mithapur. We have a nice design studio there as well, where there are sampling artisans. These are usually the best artisans in their field. So the best for applique, the best for kantha. They sit in a workshop and they work full time. They don't work from home. These artisans will then look at that prototype and actually analyze that, can the artisan even make it? Because many times a design, like for example, geometric designs are very difficult to do in applique. We can look at it and tell you that this in production will be all wavy for all the different pieces, and hence the entire production could get destroyed. So at that point, it is decided that, hey, is this even feasible to make? How are we going to alter the design to make it easier? Because not always high effort is high beauty. You can make something beautiful and reduce the amount of work that is going into making it, right? And that also comes with artisan collaboration, asking her, this stitch is too complicated. Can it be moved to another embroidery stitch, etc.? At this stage, also a costing is done. So there is like a rate chart that per inch of kantha costs this much. This is the wage that is going to go to the artisan. And that chart is something that is shared with all the artisans. And it is made along with the artisan, not without them. And the second thing is, it is made through time studies, that how much time is 1 inch of this much embroidery is taking them. And so how much time will they do the entire piece in? And then hence how much should they be paid? This is then decided. A cutting unit will make the kits. The fabric is cut. The fabric is bundled for each artisan to have everything that she needs to make that piece. Those pieces, like I said, go through the milk route process. We call it milk route because it's based on Amul's model of collection of milk. But they'll go through the villages and come back as finished products. So essentially, it's a 3-tier layer where we have designers, master craftswomen, and then, of course, all the other artisans. And all of them are part of the same organization. So they're all with Okhai. In the case where we are working with partners, sometimes it's their own designs, sometimes it's our designs, but the process is almost similar. The prototype will be made at our design studio and then sent to them.
That's amazing. It's quite a wide network. And just a quick question. I know that the intent from this episode is also to help, aspiring or existing businesses to look at their models in a more holistic way. So if there is an existing brand and if they would like to collaborate with Okhai and get some work done through the artisans, is that something that you engage in?
Absolutely. Actually, we really want to encourage that. We want people to work with us as their manufacturers. But for some reason, I think people think we are sourcing from artisans, and we are not artisans, but we are the artisan group that has just learned how to become a brand. A lot of people may also feel that, they have their own B2C business. Will they be able to focus on this? But we do have a B2B business. We are actually supplying to buyers in Netherlands who are making completely different products from what we are selling in the Indian market. We have a lot of bulk buyers as well who buy home products and the entire design from us. So very, very excited for the women of Okhai to work with you. All you need to do is reach out to us and we'll connect you to our B2B team.
That sounds brilliant. And I mean, apart from the fact that you seem to have cracked the design, the pricing, and the entire supply chain, what's really interesting to me is the way the artisans have grown with Okhai. And I saw one of your videos on your YouTube channel where your trustee board member, Rami Ben, was talking about her experience working with Okhai and everything that she spoke about in terms of the way, women are trained, are recruited, and it's training which is very holistic in nature. It's not just about improving the quality of your embroidery. It's about how you do banking. It's about how you maintain, work-life balance. How do you understand seasonal trends? How do you communicate with consumers? It was beautiful when she said that there are a lot of people who travel, people talk to her in English and she might not speak the language, but she knows exactly what that person is saying and then she knows what to say. And I've actually probably even seen her at one of the exhibitions in Bombay, and I've personally experienced that sort of exuberance, that passion, and that confidence, that come across through these women. And I would love to play a small clip from this video for our listeners. Kirti, can I do that?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
मेरा नाम रामी बेन लांगेस है और मैं आरमड़ा से आती हूँ। मेरे एसएचजी ग्रुप का नाम नागरेची महिला मंडल है। मैं पिछले 12 साल से ओखाई के साथ जुड़ी हूँ। जो बहनें कभी घर बैठ के सिर्फ गप्पे मारती थी या कुछ काम नहीं करती थी, वो हम ओखाई के साथ जुड़ने से काम करने लगी है और उनको ट्रेनिंग भी हम सबको दी जा रही है कि आपको समाज में रहना है और सर्विस करनी है तो किस तरह से आप बैलेंस कर सकते हैं। हमें दिल्ली, बेंगलोर उस जगह पे भी हमें लेके गए थे, अहमदाबाद लेके गए थे, बॉम्बे लेके गए थे सेल में, तो हमें पता चलता है कि कस्टमर को क्या पसंद है और बहनों को भी बहुत सारे बेनिफिट मिले हैं यहाँ से जुड़ने से। वो अपने बच्चों को अच्छी स्कूल में पढ़ा रही है, किसी को अगर घर नहीं है तो खुद का घर बना रही है। कोई लोग जो बाहर मजदूरी करते थे वो भी ओखाई से जुड़ने से मजदूरी छोड़ के अपना, वो बोलते हैं ना, इज्जत की रोटी घर बैठ के कमा सकते हैं, अपने बच्चों को, अपने हस्बैंड को, सबको संभाल के करके। और आज मैं ओखाई बोर्ड में ट्रस्टी हूँ। जो हमारा एसएजी ग्रुप का फेडरेशन है उसकी भी मैं प्रेसिडेंट हूँ। फिर टीवी में भी हमारा इंटरव्यू आया है, प्रेस वालों के साथ हम लोग बात करते हैं, उनसे इंटरव्यू देते, क्योंकि आज से पहले ऐसा था कि मैं कभी 2 लोगों के सामने भी नहीं बोल सकती थी। और फॉरेनर्स आते, विल बी टॉक बी इंग्लिश उनके साथ भी हमें थोड़ा बहुत इंग्लिश में बात कर सकते हैं और उनको समझा सकते हैं कि किस तरह का काम है, किस तरह से, भले ही थोड़ी बहुत वो और हमारा हो तो हम उनको एटलीस्ट समझा सकते हैं कि हमारा काम क्या है और हम किस तरह से करते हैं। और आज हम जब गांव में निकलते हैं तो लोग बोलते हैं ये अपनी वो महिला मंडल वाली बहनें हैं, ये एक हमारी पूरी एक छाप बन गई है कि ये बहनें ओखाई की है, ऐसा करके हमारी एक अलग ही पहचान बन गई है।
Kirti, this is absolutely brilliant. I mean, it just goes to show there's so much of effort and so much of love in what they do. And I somehow feel that this word empowerment is being exploited or is also being used very loosely. There's a huge difference in empowerment and creating livelihood opportunities. And I also read somewhere that you are looking at growing Okhai to be a family of over 1 lakh artisans. And I think this route that you have taken in terms of developing them individually as micro entrepreneurs is going to play a huge role in boosting this rural India economy. What are your thoughts on this, Kirti? How did this happen? Was this something that you always envisioned? Or because I believe that you identified that craft was something that you wanted to focus on. And then this entire gamut of actually developing this person beyond the craft is a huge achievement.
True. So, of course, the goals are large, and it's not easy, right? It's not easy to change someone's life in 1 or 2 years. But what you can do is give them the ability to self-empower. And mostly what I have seen in the villages of India is that the women are extremely proactive and they really, really want to contribute to the household income. Men, of course, have some sort of job, either in agriculture or in construction working, but women do not have that opportunity and often don't even have they're not even allowed to step out of the house. Now, what starts to happen is that they see that some money is coming into the house through embroidery or through any kind of work, and then that woman starts to realize that when I bring money to the table of the household, I get to make decisions. And one of the things that I saw, and one of the beautiful things that I saw in Okhai, was like the minute the woman started earning. Earlier, only the boys used to be sent to evening tuitions because school for sure is free for both. But now the daughter is also sent to evening tuitions because the mother is paying for it. So these are the beautiful stories that I see on how empowerment can actually change the social fabric of a community. Rami Ben, Lakshmi Ben, Lakhu Ben, and all of these beautiful women at Okhai, they are called to any new function, ribbon cutting in the village, and they are asked what the village should do. Coming back to your question of 1 lakh artisans in the next 5 years, it's extremely doable. But what I want to be mindful of is I don't want to add numbers without concrete impact. I don't want to buy one basket from someone and say I impacted that life, right? I want to make sure that there is consistent income month on month, or there is sizable income through our sales.
Yeah. No, especially I think during these times, I mean, of course, I would love to know a little more in terms of, the product diversifications or the edits that you made to be able to survive during the COVID times. But, we spoke to a lot of NGOs and there are a lot of artisans who are suffering miserably. And I think that goes to show that the organization that you're working with, are they able to give you that sort of a livelihood come rain, come storm, come whatever. And I think that's something that also you've been able to manage to do beautifully. And therefore, I would say that if there is an existing system that you have spent 5 years and more to, build, if there are newer brands who are coming out there and want to explore this diversity of craft that India has to offer, then it just makes sense to sort of work with somebody who's already identified how to do this and have also excelled in empowering in the true sense. So just for my understanding, what is your geographical reach right now when it comes to the kind of craft and the kind of artisans that you engage with?
So I think as of right now, because of the COVID onboarding, I think we're present in every single state now. I think Kashmir maybe not yet, but that's also something we're talking to. I completely agree that it's smarter to work with a non-profit or a social business on ground, especially when the designers or brands are based in Bombay, Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore. Right? It's not possible to be there, and it's a huge cost to maintain studios, structures, factories in rural India. So while you may feel that you're paying a margin, but you're paying that for the organization running, quality checking, every single cost, even tea and coffee for artisans twice a day, right? Things like that add up. So I would definitely say you have to find the right partner for yourself. And this is something I'm actually writing about and launching tomorrow on my blog, which is how to find your artisans. Because that has been such a big question from everyone on my Instagram, that how do we find our artisans? We also want our artisans. So honestly, they're all there, all around us. There are some fantastic organizations, but usually it's not easy to find them on Google. However, it's easy to find them through word of mouth. Once you have a connection, I think you may want to, like, for example, if you're looking for hand woven fabric to make a collection with, there are some very honest non-profit organizations which are doing hand weaving. You may want to evaluate how far are they from you. Are they able to understand your sampling remotely? What are their cost structures, margin structures? Are they too expensive for you, or are they fitting in your budget? I think these are some considerations. And then, of course, are you gelling with them? Is this a good relationship that you want to get into for a long time? Do you like the person you're working with? I think these are things that people organically can consider. And then I think that's a great way to start working with an artisan group or organization.
Since we are on this topic, what are some of the important aspects of a business that a fashion or a lifestyle brand should look into when we are trying to build a truly sustainable, a truly conscious business?
I think traceability, and it's very difficult to achieve. And that's the most difficult one. Because if you have traceability, you can trace where this cotton was grown, who spun it, who wove it, who then, sort of dyed it. Where did it then come to get tailored? Was it hand embroidered? If you know the entire value chain, you can see what has been the carbon footprint, and actual carbon footprint, not estimated carbon footprint. And at the same time, you can check what dyes were used, right? You can check, was the weaver, spinner, everyone paid fairly? And it's possible to do this if there are smaller, social businesses running these professionally. It is actually not possible to ensure this professionalism and sustainability if you are working with middlemen or, sort of individual weavers who may be exploiting other weavers. And so I would say that traceability is very, very important. That's something that I try and achieve every time I'm sourcing from someone. I don't want to source from anyone where I'm in the dark, that I have no idea where it was made and who made it and how it was made.
Right. Often, I think traceability as a concept seems very daunting to a lot of people, while it seems extremely aspirational. But especially if the supply chain is really long, then I feel that it becomes difficult to, collate all these data points. But in your experience, is this really a large issue, or is it really achievable if somebody wants to make it a part of their business?
I think you have to make it as a criteria. The other day I was sourcing masks from some people, and I was like, "Hey, can you tell me how much did the artisan make on this?" And they sent me an Excel sheet breakup of every single cost, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna work with them."
That's brilliant.
I was same day I was sourcing from someone else who is a known, very, very reputed social business, recognized by several international organizations, and was selling the mask for 200 rupees. I'm sure it must be worth it. But when I asked, "Hey, can you give me the breakup? Because I'm not understanding the cost of this mask and I need to sell it, so I can't sell it for this much." And they just said, "No, we can't share with you. We don't share our breakups." uh, and that was such an alarm, right? It's an alarm that this person will never share who made it, how was it made, who made how much money. Even though they are a non-profit and social business, they are not willing to share with you. I couldn't even take that conversation forward, right? And it's wise not to take that call. Even though that product was really beautiful, I took that call to not move forward because it was an alarm, right? So you have to not give in to temptation because a product is attractive or because it'll sell really well and you can make a quick buck on it. Um, you have to have your principles of transparency in place, and once transparency is there, there will be traceability.
Right. Yeah, I think ethics just need to be a part of your DNA in whatever that you do to truly, sort of build this sustainable business. Because, see, sustainability as a word also, I just sort of take a deep breath while saying right now, because it's just being so used and abused that often it's translated in a lot of ways. Nevertheless, I think what I want to talk to you about is, you mentioned that you're a social enterprise, that you're an NGO, and you don't see a lot of NGOs, so to say, to come up with such nice products. So, firstly, do you or have you, encountered this question where people look at NGOs in a certain way, and when you go out of the way to make something look beautiful, like I saw a beautiful photo shoot that you did recently on your Instagram, and I did also see the comments, and some said really good things about it, while some also questioned that how is it that you can afford to do these things, and I know that you're working very hard to build an image that is above and beyond an NGO. So how do you deal with such things, and why do you think it's essential for NGOs to also sort of up their communication or up their game when it comes to a lot of other things beyond the product?
I think this is a very important question, and I remember that comment. And I personally went logged into the account and I replied to it. So the thing was, yeah, why did you spend on this shoot if you're an NGO? And I remember having that NGO tag on Instagram then. And so the whole thing is, NGOs are expected to be low cost, and sometimes low quality is also fine from them, and low price, right? Now, what happens in this case is that because of achieving this very minimum level of everything across the value chain, there is a huge struggle to grow, because you can sell so much through the story of charity, right? Please buy our product because we are amazing, impact organization, and then we are doing such good things for the women. That's going to get you only so far. People are not going to buy a dress every month from you just because of that story. It has to be a beautiful garment, and we are very proud of our craft. We don't want charity. And that was something that we were very clear from the start. I think also because I don't come from development sector background, and I come from a very capitalistic background. I just happen to have a heart. And so I feel that it was so important. And to be able to compete with corporations that are going to spend millions and sell the story of sustainability. And when we're doing honest work and still not being able to actually communicate that work. And everything in the value chain deserves its fair price, right? An artisan deserves a fair price to make the product. A copywriter deserves a fair price to write that copy. A photographer deserves a fair price to do that shoot. A model deserves her fair price as well. And everything costs so much. Like Facebook ads, for example, are going to take a huge chunk of that product money from you, but they are getting you the customers. So I think a lot of customers don't understand that the value chain is the same for nonprofits and the value chain is the same for every other organization in the world. We're just trying to be more ethical and more sustainable throughout the chain. But that doesn't mean that we should be substandard. That doesn't mean that we have to do something of a sub quality. For sure, there are so many people who come together for us just because we are nonprofits. I think I remember making all my friends work with me and do something for Okhai in the first 2 years of Okhai. Now, of course, where we've reached a point where we only engage with everyone in a fair freelancer model. But we do still have volunteers who come in and like, we want to be a part of this initiative and we want to help the women and we do something here, which is beautiful. But I think it's only fair that it has to be run like any other professional business. And for this reason, sometimes I don't even mention that it's a non-profit organization. I just let that be an underline, because I don't want that mindset internally in the company, where I have seen a lot of non-productivity in the non-profit sector. I want it to have high productivity internally and high expectations externally and very, very high delivery to the customers.
Spoke like a true businesswoman. Interesting. I'm going to ask you a slightly tricky question right now.
Yeah.
Your prices are, I wouldn't say they're cheap. They're not exorbitant. They're very beautifully priced. I think it's a very comfortable amount that anyone would not hesitate to pay, given that, there is artisans involvement. It's well made. The construction is beautiful. But do you manage to sell at these prices because of the fact that you're an NGO? If say a for-profit brand had to work with you using the same sort of expertise, aren't they bound to have a slightly more markup percentage for them to survive their business?
Oh, absolutely. I think here's the thing: if you've seen an Okhai garment in person and online, it's very, very difficult to tell this, because machine embroidery and hand embroidery all look the same online, right? Hand block printed, hand woven. Okay, it's so easy to not be able to tell that online. But if you've seen an Okhai garment in person, the same garment that we are selling for 2,000 rupees could easily be sold in a much better setting and a fancy studio for 6,000 to 7,000 rupees, and no one will blink an eye. Purely because I think for us, it is really important that we don't just sell 10 dresses, because I don't want to impact only 10 women, right? That one dress should give employment to at least 100 women. And hence, it's very important for me to sell 100 pieces of that dress. Now, to be able to sell 100 pieces, the price versus volume game starts to play, right? And hence, you have to be moderately priced to be able to sell a larger volume. That is the one reason why we are able to also price it lower, is because we are making enough pieces for the overheads of the company not to be too heavy on them. So if I was only making 10 dresses and my cost of the company was really huge, of my electricity, Wi-Fi, tea, coffee, logistics were very high, then all that cost would be applied on those 10 dresses, right? And the volume game can really help you achieve lower rates. Yeah. Having said that, I feel that it's not even going to be available after 10 years. You won't find these hand embroidered kurtas because there are no longer going to be any artisans who are going to make this.
Don't say
Because
that.
it's
I'm banking on you for them to preserve them.
I
No.
really I really hope they do, and we are trying so hard to get the second generation to do this. But if it's not financially feasible for them, eventually they're not going to do it. And if nobody is willing to pay this price, it cannot be financially feasible, right? People are like, no, honestly, by mistake, 2 days ago, by mistake, a dress was uploaded at 750 rupees. It was actually for 2,400 rupees, hand block printed, hand embroidered. Suddenly, I see 16 pieces are sold out in 1 hour. Okay, at 750. 750 is not even the cost of that product. Okay, and I'm like, wow, people are just waiting for the price to drop and they want to buy it, right? So they love it, they want to buy it, but it's not fair to, because if they are not paying for it, somebody else is, right? And so we have to buy less. Firstly, we don't have to buy everything, but we have to buy good things that we are going to love and pay fairly for them, because that's what's going to let people survive, and that's what's going to let craft survive. Having said that, we get both the feedback. Some people are like, wow, why is this so cheap? And this is amazing, I can buy lots of it. And we do get people who are not able to afford it but really want to buy it, and I think then they do buy during the sale periods.
Yeah, like you rightly said, I think there definitely are two ends of the spectrum here. And I wanted to sort of touch upon on the other end where, there's this major appreciation for craft, and uh, we've seen masterpieces that has involved craft from across the country, and may not necessarily be in the form of apparel, but it could be, a collectible, it could be home decor, uh, that could be a luxury item. Considering you are already working with this array of designers and array of craft, do you think this is sort of a sector or an opportunity that Okhai would look at exploring in the future?
I think not for 2 years because of COVID. The luxury sector, I don't know if it's the right time to re-enter or enter for 2 years. But in the long run, most definitely. And I've seen that transition for several brands, that they started as a Pret line and then they eventually got into really, really high-end wedding wear. And considering we do hand embroidery, it will definitely be a path for us. We would love to actually collaborate with somebody who's already doing wedding wear in a big business and wants an ethical production line. I think that would be a route to take, because design is such a critical part of wedding wear.
Right.
And hence I think working with someone like that would be instrumental in doing that.
Yeah, I think that would be a great collaboration to even test markets and see if that's something, that's feasible for you to get into full-fledged. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, we're about to wrap up now, but I just want to ask you, there are so many designers and brands in the country, across the world, who work with artisans, who work with craft, and maybe a lot of them are also able to create the kind of impact that you have been able to. But there are also a lot of artisans who are just behind the scenes, and are still working in cramped spaces, and maybe they don't even know what the final garment looks like. They're just working on their khaka and doing their bit of the embroidery, and never get to see what this is going to make. What is that one message that you would like to give to designers and business owners who are working in this sector and working with people who actually have a lot of talent, and it becomes our duty to sort of preserve it? Like you said, if the next generation does not take it, your message to them, and how do we make it more lucrative so that it doesn't die off in 10 years?
I think in both these cases, I've seen three things. Okay. One is the business owner is extremely business and money minded. In that case, I think let's stop, let's take a relook at the situation, because it will be very difficult to survive in the future, right? People are going to see through that stuff. The second case is when the person or the business owner is completely design centric. So, and often somebody from a very, very solid design education happens to be extremely design centric, and they're not looking at the business part of it very well, and they're not looking at the artisans also. I think let's stop right there and then look at, hey, you have to make a profitable business out of it on the other end, and you have to be honest with your artisans. The third case is when it's an organization that is completely dedicated to the artisans and not looking at the design and not even looking at the business. And I think they need to stop right there, because without good design and good business, you're not going to grow. So I think my advice is you don't need to be one way. You need to be these three things. You need to be great with your artisans, your workforce. You need to be great with your design, because that's your leading sort of solution out of this situation. And for business to be very, very concrete, needs you to be a little bit analytical, a little bit good with numbers, and good with relationships, good with sales. I think these three things, when combined together, will help us structure a very, very fair organization that can survive the test of time. Not to forget the environment. I think along with all these three things, it's really important to keep reminding yourself that it's a given that you have to ensure sustainability for the environment in the process of doing all of these three things.
I think you just summed it up so beautifully. Would you like to host my podcast? You should actually.
I would love it.
We should do maybe one episode with Rami Ben. I'm sure she'll be brilliant.
I think we should, so we are doing a live next Friday with her. So you should definitely join in. We're actually doing it with her, Lakshmi Ben, Lakhu Ben. So they're all going to be there next Friday, I think around 5.
Great. Cool. One last question, and this is just sort of a fun question that I like to end with. So if you were to get yourself a t-shirt with a print, what quote would you like that t-shirt to say?
Wow. So the thing that instantly came into my mind, I don't know what you're going to think about it, was, and I'll explain why. It says, don't fear me, fear mediocrity. And why I say this, and it always is in my head, and I would love this t-shirt, is because I'm a bit tough on people, and everyone around me, everyone in my work, family, friends, I think I'm tough on everyone. I love giving critical feedback, improving situations. But I think what I really want to do is that everyone should be far away from mediocrity, and everything that goes out of your table should be amazing, and there should be no fear against that.
I love it. I'm going to print it and send it to you.
Thank you. That'll be amazing.
Done deal. So lastly, please tell us where people can find you. Give us your website, your Instagram handles, email ID, everything.
So like I said, I'm always on Instagram. So I'm on Raising Okhai. I am a bit slow with replies, but I do always reply on weekends. So I write a blog every Sunday. I think I'm going to move it to Saturday, on running your social sustainable fashion business. And I'm writing that on Medium, but the link can be found on my Instagram. Our website is www.okhai.org. And I'm really happy to be on this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirti. I think it was insightful. It was fun. And very, very informative for not just people who want to build a business, but I think just generally to understand what goes behind building a social business. So thank you so much for your time, and see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I hope whoever's listening, I hope in your social business journey, you go a long, long way.
Congratulations for making it to the end of this episode. I hope you had fun listening to this. We have a lot more interesting conversations with different stakeholders across sustainability. If you think that you have learned something from this podcast, be sure to recommend it to friends and family. Also, do follow our podcast. We are available on multiple platforms, including Apple, Google, Spotify, and a lot more. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. See you soon.